Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Fake Philosophers. Got a full lineup right here. As always, we got Dan. Are you jerking off? What are you doing?
I was scratching my chest.
Sorry, I was literally just seeing this. I was like, Danny, right when we start. As always, Danny,
It's
and
gonna
then
be a
with
great
us,
show, Mike.
it's gonna start off great. Yeah. With us today, movie review extraordinary Derrick Murray,
Hello, everyone.
and the Jack of all nerds himself, Mike Maxwell.
What's up, dog?
Yep, we're gonna get down to some movies today. Starting it off as Derrick's background, the Thunderbolts. Let's talk about the Thunderbolts. Let's go around the table and a quick thought, and then we'll get into the details. Derrick, you first.
Yeah, I the best way that I could describe this is like a mid-tier pre-Endgame Marvel movie, but like a post-Endgame best. So, do with that what you want, but that's kind of where we are in the overall cinematic universe. I feel like it exists in this weird plane where like yes, it's a part of the larger MCU, but at the same time you kind of have to like separate it because it's not really about the dumb like multiverse stuff that we've gone down, and it has just like a different, I don't know, vibe. So I feel like you got to take it on its own, but if you're gonna plug it in, it's the best we've gotten since Endgame, but it's also just like mid-tier pre-Endgame type of movie.
That's fair. Mr. Maxwell?
Yeah. Also, just since we didn't actually specify this beforehand, I assume that at some point this will be getting into a spoiler discussion.
Oh, spoilers right away. I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Cool. Good.
So I had a good time with this movie. I aside from it having the Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder color palette, I thought I thought this was a good time at the movies. I know the MCU's been struggling a bit lately, and I don't know if this fixes that, but I feel like we're on an upward trajectory. So yeah, I had a good time with one or two notable issues with the movie that I'm sure we sounds like we all had. So
Oh
uh,
yes, oh
we'll
yes.
get more into that later.
Danny?
I mean, Derek. I think Derek said it the best. This was a good movie. It wasn't the best. I would say it's mid-tier pre-Endgame, and the best thing we've gotten since. I mean, I'll add a caveat to that. I think No Way Home was probably the best we got after Endgame. But this and like the recent arc of MCU movies, this is probably one of the best, if not the best.
Okay. I would generally agree with all you. I've always said, and people have disagreed with me on this. I personally don't think that Marvel has put out an objectively bad movie or product. A lot of people disagree with me. We don't have to get in that argument. But I will say there.
Iron Man 3. Oh, sorry. Something,
Careful.
something in the
Like I
air.
said, this is just my opinion. But like you said, there are tiers, right? Like if it's 1 to 5, like Endgame's 5, that there's Endgame, Infinity War, Civil War, Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3 up there. And then bottom tier, there's some we don't have to get into those. But this one, yeah, I would say it was good. It was solid. I would give it like on the 1 to 5, 5 being the best. It'd probably be in that 3 to 4 range. Like Derek said, mid tier, good, had a good time. Um, and I think, yeah, so we all agree on that. That's good. Um, Mr. Maxwell, I'm going to let you just go ahead and address your issue, which I think we all would agree with. But I have a feeling
Okay.
you've stored this up, so I want to hear it.
I think it's fair to say that just from the trailers, that we all knew that Taskmaster was on borrowed time because it's the Taskmaster only shows up in the action shots. None of the like characters talking. There's no Taskmaster, so we all knew something was going to go down there. What I did not expect was for Taskmaster to take a bullet to the fucking mask and be dead within like 5 minutes of the movie starting. Like, why did you even have them in the movie? And my issue is like, I don't even have a problem with you killing the character, but there's kind of the thing about the MCU where it's like oftentimes you need to have seen other movies to be able to be invested in what's going on in the current movie. You don't always need to treat movies like that. If you give your characters a little bit of time to introduce in the current movie, give a shit about them, and then you can kill one of them and we'll care. So even having Black Widow in the back of my mind, you killing Taskmaster after she says like one sentence, and then I'm supposed to give a fuck about that? But like, if I don't know that character, there's nothing. And the creator of the movie said they did it because they wanted everyone to feel like anything's possible. But that doesn't feel that way because you did it too soon. You fucking blew your load right at the beginning. If we had gotten more time, even just in the facility where they're escaping and they all work together, and then you kill her when they get out.
Yeah.
Give us time to get to know the character a little bit and give a shit. But like, it was just a fucking waste.
Can I tell you, Mike? I literally kept waiting for her to show back up.
Same.
Like,
yeah,
it was not until they fully escaped the compound to where I was like, oh no, she dead. Like, she is dead. I legitimately thought that she made it out. And like,
who gets shot in the mask and dies?
I kept literally the entire I missed most of that compound action scene because I was waiting for Taskmaster to show up and save the day, and then it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So we're doing it that way. And I think you're right, Mike. That's probably the most frustrating thing. It's not that you killed Taskmaster, which is fine. Like, if someone has to die, then truthfully, it's going to be between Ghost and Taskmaster. And it's kind of just a coin flip, right? Like, they're both characters that, yeah, if you didn't see Black Widow recently, you probably don't care. And I know for sure no one remembers Ant-Man and the Wasp. So that means you barely remember Ghost. So, but at least, like you said, just give her something else to do. Like, she can still die in the compound, but let her be a part of the escape, and then she can die in the escape. And that also adds a little bit more levity to Bob wanting to sacrifice himself, because once you're actually getting into the escape and then you lose Taskmaster, now it's a catalyst for Bob to be like, oh, wow, they're all going to die for me. I need to be a part of this. And then you think he dies, and then everything just becomes more impactful. It's literally just like moving the death to like 5 minutes later. and it's like, there's no problem now. Everything's fine.
Yeah, Mike, I think you touched on it too. And Derek, that you actually made a perfect point. Like, and that could have been a good arc for that version of Taskmaster, to where she did all this dirty shit, and then now she did something good and dies and whatever. But like Mike kind of hit it too. Like, what was the purpose of even having her?
Yeah.
Literally, if you just removed the character and that her dying didn't happen, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Not only that, but why do the scene of the mask coming up and seeing Olga Kurylenko for 1 second, literally 1 second?
She got that Marvel bag for an hour's worth of work.
I was going to say, pragmatically, the budget, you could have saved some money by just not having the character.
Yes.
Like, just pragmatically.
ADR,
like
ADR that shit in. I know you do it because I caught a couple of moments.
Well, I want to say,
right.
So when they showed her face, that was 100% ADR'd or a digital mask.
Oh yeah, no, it looked.
That was not her in the
shit.
costume. Yeah. So
Yeah,
they had her for like 15 minutes. They're like, hey, we just need you real quick just to say this line in front of a green screen. Great, awesome, thank you, Olga. Go back to doing whatever the fuck it is you do.
$500,000.
Yeah, it was the equivalent. It was the equivalent of Gal Gadot showing up in Shazam: Fury of the Gods or whatever.
I forgot all about that. Oh,
you're not the only one. Don't worry.
You're bringing up trauma memories. I need to go to the void in my shame room.
Yeah, so outside of the Taskmaster, they just like, I didn't know a lot about Taskmaster before Black Widow, admittedly. So then when I watched Black Widow and I was like, the little bit I do know, this didn't seem right. So they already fucked the character in that movie. And then to bring it back just to fuck it again. It was like, this is another Ralph Boner. Like, fuck you.
That's exactly what it was. It was like,
Ralph
character we love. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, that's nothing.
This is not a good trend. The fact that multiple people on this podcast have been able to cite specific examples of them doing exactly what they did to Taskmaster is not good. It's not a good sign.
That's not. All right, Taskmaster aside, other things that we don't like.
So I don't want to bring that up because I actually kind of like that. Never mind.
All right.
Cool. I missed you, Danny. I miss you so much.
I do have something else. It was the other big thing I had that was an issue. And I don't know how long the movie was. I didn't actually clock that, but it we didn't get to know the characters enough. There needed to be more time with the whole team together, because by the time Bucky actually shows up and Red Guardian actually shows up, we go like right from that to their throwdown with Bob. And then they split up and you're like, well, but I never gave a shit about you guys as a team to begin with. So what does it matter? So I just didn't care when they were like, we're going our separate ways. And then when they come back together, it's like, okay, cool. But I still wasn't really that invested. And there was no part of me that when they showed up at the end, when they all went into the Shadow Realm or whatever to help, no part of me believed they would do that, because they never formed that bond. There was never that flying V. There was never that moment. I never felt it. So I think they needed more time showing the team together and bickering or whatever. Because I mean, those were the most enjoyable parts of the movie. But I just, they just didn't deliver on that for me.
Yeah, that would fold into actually one of my biggest issues. And I think a lot of that lack of team makeup and a lack of team building is filled with time spent on Valentina, who I think is probably the worst character in the entire MCU. And I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Like, I absolutely adore her. But it is very clear that, one, she is wildly miscast. And then two, they have no idea what they're trying to do with her and her character. And it just feels like this whole, well, she's in the comics and she's somehow attached to this, and we already introduced her, so we just got to keep using her. She's the worst part of Wakanda Forever. Like, that, the fact that Wakanda Forever
was in that.
I know, but she's the absolute worst part of that movie. And that's one of those movies where, like, it's a miracle that movie even exists in the first place. But like 90% of the things that people have issues with are taken up by time spent with her for no reason whatsoever in this Wakanda Forever movie. And I felt the same way in Thunderbolts. Everything that she does just absolutely drags and brings all of that down. And for me, I felt like that's all time that we could have spent doing exactly what Mike is asking for. Like, if you just either cut her out entirely or just cut down her screen time and whatever it is, there are so many other ways that you can make a dark, shadowy government trying to get the Century program or whatever. Like, there are tons of other ways to introduce that. And you can do that in 30 seconds of exposition and then just give us the whole team build up. So that was definitely one of my biggest things. And then the other thing, I hate what they're doing with Bucky. That whole, like, he's a congressman now, and whatever that is, whatever comic book line that they're pulling it from, they should have abandoned that like day one, because it is dumb and it doesn't really add anything to that character whatsoever.
It's already over. It's already over, Derek.
I know. And that was the thing. It was like, why did we do this if you're just going to give him his Terminator 2 moment? Like, why did we, like, his channeling of Arnold in that whole scene, I was like, bro, did James Cameron direct this action piece? Like, what?
Are you talking about the limo chase?
Oh, dude, yeah. Bro,
okay.
Even down to like the upward angle of him on the motorcycle turning with the shotgun, and I was like, "Bro, are we cosplaying here? What is happening?" And he's all waiting in black for the leather, like, dude, he just needed the sunglasses. That was it. That's all he needed. Yep. And then I'd be like, "Young Arnold." But anyways, yeah. So that was one of my big beefs with it too. I don't like. I know that it's over, but it just, those kinds of things just bog this movie down, and it doesn't allow for the things that could be good to actually breathe and give this movie the life that I think it really needs. Not that it's necessarily bad, but those are things that I think could have fixed it. Those are things I didn't like.
I'll piggyback on a few of those things. I didn't mind after seeing Captain America: Brave New World. I don't mind the idea of Bucky trying to be a congressman, but like, lean into it then. Like, the idea of a congressman, even Bucky. Like, I did like the scene where, like, they asked him a question and it was like the typical political bullshit, and he was like, "Oh, it's worrisome." Like, I thought that was funny, fine, but lean into that then. Like, the choice of him being a congressman and then on a dime just flipping and being Winter Soldier again, that could have been a story within the story of him struggling as a congressman, but then wanting to go out there and be the vigilante. Like, that could have been a story, but Derek, you hit on the head. Didn't work. The whole thing fell flat. Why even start it when you can't finish it? And then to go back to what Mike was saying about just the team aspect of it, yeah, I did feel like it was rushed. And I got a little bit of Suicide Squad vibes on the first one. But if you remember that movie, like they kind of all go to the bar and they're like, "We're bad guys," and they have a drink, and then they're like, "All right, well, let's all like go fight." And then you see Boomerang, who like left, just suddenly join them again, and then in there they're like, "We're a family now," and it was like, "What? You all just hated each other 30 seconds ago. What the fuck are you talking about?" Anyway, but like to compare that to Guardians of the Galaxy, to where like they're bickering the whole movie, but you kind of see them starting to bond. There's moments where it's kind of serious and deep. And then there's just that one scene where the classic line, we're all standing here like a bunch of jackasses. Or we're all standing up, but they kind of you see the bonding. And in this one, like you hit it on the head, you don't really I couldn't articulate it until you said it, Mike. They really didn't have the bond. Like you didn't really granted, if you walked in having never seen any movie, you wouldn't have any idea who these people are. Which could be okay. Like Guardians, you kind of had that vibe. But you kind of focus on Black Widow a lot. And yeah, you just didn't really get that they actually liked each other. Like when they become the Avengers, like they do they like each other? Like do they want to be Avengers, all of them? Like it's just there wasn't that co I'm not sure of the term, but like yeah, I'm agreeing with you, long story short.
I will just to interject there too, when since you mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the things that they do very well is each character gets their own introduction before they're brought together.
Yeah.
And that is what allows them to like build that dynamic. And I'm not saying this movie needs to be longer, but again, there are things that you can cut down and things that you can cut out to where like even if you just showed all of them having a finishing a mission, right? Like you just show the U.S. agent doing something that he regrets, just like they do with Yelena, which I think is really cool. Like that's why you're so attached to her. And then when she meets the Red Guardian, he's got his own introduction. But like, there's no real intro for Ghost or U.S. agent or Justice for Taskmaster. There's no real introduction for either one of them. They just show up in this incinerator, and now we're supposed to believe that they're a team when you could have just like show them rob a place, or you know what I mean? Like just show
Yeah.
them do the dirty work so that when they come together and they start bickering and they have different ideas of what they're supposed to be, it just strengthens that bond later. I'm not saying that that would perfect it. I think there's still some holes there, but it would make it a little bit stronger, especially for somebody like Ghost, like I said, who the fuck remembers Ghost? Like nobody remembers Ghost. And like
and certainly no one who watched this movie, because she might as well not have been there either, because she had no
yeah.
there's no like arc for her. Like we don't get a flashback of her with Bob when in her head or whatever. Like we get nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
She's just Yelena's new bestie that talks shit about U.S. agent, and that's it. Like that's her whole arc.
Yeah.
It's to be like, yes, Queen, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
That's her whole arc.
When you said the coin flip thing earlier, like it's literally that. It was like they didn't know which was. They didn't film shit for either Taskmaster or Ghost, and then it was just like, we'll just kill one of them. Like,
Yeah. Well, and going to piggyback on that, going back to Guardians, like, yeah, you didn't get full backstories of these people, but you knew enough about them. Like, you kind of knew Gamora was working for Thanos, but she doesn't like him. And then you kind of knew that, like, Star-Lord is kind of like this, outlaw. And even like Groot and Rocket, you didn't really get a full backstory, but you got the idea that Rocket does have this kind of tragic past because he makes a comment about losing people. And that Groot's his buddy, and Groot doesn't need a backstory. And then Drax, you do kind of hear like Thanos killed my family, so you get enough of their history with just those little sprinkles to care about them. And yeah, had I not seen the previous properties, I wouldn't really give a fuck about Agent or whatever his name is. I forgot his name. U.S. Agent, excuse me. I wouldn't really give a fuck about him. I liked Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, so I cared about her. But if I didn't see that movie, I wouldn't give a fuck about her. I wouldn't give a fuck about Taskmaster had I not seen anything, and it wouldn't mean nothing to me, her dying. The only one you really care about is Elena, because you see her, and I like Bucky, and if I hadn't seen the previous properties, I wouldn't give a fuck about him. Like there's no depth to the characters. Yeah, that's my rant.
I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and do something that I don't like to do, and that's play devil's advocate. My interpretation of it was that there was no bonding, and that was on purpose, because these are very like sociopathic individuals who don't necessarily like to play with others, that are forced because of their circumstances to kind of coalesce and work together. And when we get the teaser at the end of the movie, we still kind of see that they don't like each other. They don't like working together. There's still that bickering, even though they're now the new Avengers. Um, and so I'm not necessarily upset that we didn't get like a bonding experience between them because the movie's like, first of all, the movie is a Yelena Red Guardian movie. Um, it focuses on them. They get, I think, the majority of the screen time. Um, but I'm not necessarily upset that we didn't get like a bonding moment because this movie's about them not bonding and that they're kind of forced into this circumstance where they now have to work together. And yeah, so I'm not really upset by that fact.
I'm gonna counter that. I would buy that. But in the whole shadow world, where the fuck you want to call it, which I do have an issue with that whole thing, but besides that, it does allude to them all empathizing and coming together to help Bob because they're all stuck in their own voids, you know.
I mean, it could be that, or it could be like they see that Yelena's kind of getting through to him, and like they're like, "Oh, yeah, this will work. Let's just tell this guy what we think he wants to hear."
I
And
would push back on it as well though, because I think and I get what you're saying. You're right. They're the reluctant team up. And they're all kind of going through something. But even lesser movies like The Suicide Squad or better movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, they all are people who are selfish and people who have done horrible things. And like Mike, you brought a great point of like Rocket and Groot, we don't really know anything about them. And within the first minute of meeting them, I know everything I need to know about those two characters. Like, I don't need to know anything else. I know who they are. I know what they stand for. I know what they're doing. And it all makes sense, but they're incredibly selfish. Everybody in that group are incredibly selfish. You're all the Suicide Squad iterations. Like, so every time you have a reluctant team up, like using the argument that like they don't want to work together and that's why we don't need to show that, well, that's just a classic reluctant hero trope. Like that just you have to give us a reason to care. And so for me, I would honestly say I think you're right. Yes, Yelena, it's really the Yelena, Red Guardian, and Bob show. Like they're the ones that we focus the most on. And that's fine. They're the best performers in the entire film. But really, you could just delete US Agent and Ghost, have the rest of that team up, and the movie functions exactly the same way.
Probably would have been better.
Right? Like we lose.
no, because we wouldn't have gotten a taco shield.
Look, I'm all down for little baby Russell trying to channel his dad because he has never looked more like his father than he did in this movie. Like he is so baby Kurt in this movie. It is insane. And I'm all for it. But if you're just talking about like a narrative structure, like just narratively overall, you could delete everybody except those basically core four. And the movie operates without there's literally nothing else that happens. You just delete them and the movie works perfectly fine.
It probably would have been better, yeah.
Let me so Danny, to
Yes.
your point, I think that what you're saying could have been more the case had they paid it off in the end, in the shadow realm. So that was my other beef with the end, is that everybody jumps into the shadow realm, this place that it's supposed to lock you away into your own personal hell. We don't see anyone else's hell. They all just magically appear and do friendship is magic, and then they fucking save the day. What we needed to see, and would have illustrated Danny's point more, is if they had all been maybe not willingly gone into the realm, but in their own hurt personal hells, even if we just had a couple minutes with each one, seeing what they're going through, realizing that being the loner that they are is not going to fucking work, and they're going to be trapped here unless they come together, and that makes their reluctant coming together to save the day kind of a thing work more. But this movie didn't really pay that off. I mean, it didn't pay off the other thing either. Regardless of which way we were going with it, I think they needed to show the other people experiencing something in this realm. Again, it didn't have to be crazy long. Like, I mean, we barely do anything with Yelena in there. She fucking runs through a couple of rooms minor backstory that if you're not already familiar with the character, you'd probably be like, well, that was weird. You know what I mean? So, like, so you could have done stuff with the other characters, and especially maybe ones we didn't already get a flashback with Bob, like Ghost or something.
Yeah,
you know.
I would have loved to
and
see Ghosts.
Yeah, well, and I'm not a big fan of flashback storytelling in ways to like try to move your narrative forward, but like you're using it as a power, and we do get to see some of that from Yelena, and we see her like part of her room is that just cry, drink, and repeat, and it's it's incredibly sad, and she's alone, and but she gets her moment to like say that to her father, like it's a lot. There's a lot more emotional weight that goes into that, and obviously you can't give everybody their own cry face monologue. And you can see them try to do that with US Agent. Like he has a couple of flashbacks of like, yeah, I've lost everything trying to be this person that no one believes that I am. But I think you don't get it from Ghost. You only get it from Red Guardian in what he says, but you don't actually see what he's going through, right? It's all just kind of implied. You don't really even get it from Bucky, which I get it. We've seen Bucky go through all of these different iterations, but like if he's going to be the leader of the new Avengers with a Z, like he needs to, we need to give him something other than, like I said, his Terminator 2 moment. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like you said, Mike, like show us in his room, show us what is still haunting Bucky that's making him want to continue this.
It's just a closet full of suits that he has to wear to the
office. Suits and arms.
Just him in a never-ending congressional hearing.
Yeah.
Just reporter after reporter after reporter.
Yeah.
But also the other thing that would serve is if you showed all these things would be a climax, because I feel like while I definitely didn't need a giant CGI space beam fight with something, this climax felt very anticlimactic. And if you had everyone in their own personal hells battling it in some way, it doesn't have to be a physical confrontation. I mean, US Agent's a prime example. What if he goes back into that scene with his wife, and suddenly, like, just the way you shoot it in a more like horror sort of a way, where the wife becomes this huge domineering figure over him, telling him, like whatever, and he breaks down because he knows he's not a good father or whatever. Like you could do shit with that.
Yeah.
And you have those little rising actions to where it feels like we get a climax, because that's my last beef with the movie, is that it's over so fucking fast. And while I appreciated it, I did like the angle they went with, like the battling your own darkness inside. Like that's it's a great angle, and kind of addressing like depression and stuff like that. It's a unique way to do it, but it felt like it was just over too quickly, and then the movie just ended.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so before we start going on to things we like, to kind of address Danny's issue again, and then just the bigger issue in general with like the team building, if you want to go back to the theater nerd in me is about to come out, like Aristotle's Poetics, and he analyzes stories and what makes stories good. One thing is, if the character starts the movie, and this doesn't have to be just the protagonist, any character starts a movie a certain way, and then when the movie ends, they're the same person, it's the sign of a weak character arc. Like they should either be worse. If they're evil, they could be more evil, or they could be good. If they're good, they could be even more good, or they've gone evil. Like that shows a good character arc, is that you're a different character going into the movie than you are coming out. And so, and this goes to like, as a criticism of the movie as it is, and Danny, in your hypothesis of them not really liking each other anyway, that they wouldn't have changed then. If they left the movie still not liking each other and being the solo people, then it would be signs that it's not a good character arc for any of them. So that would be my last pushback on Danny's point. And then also kind of a criticism of the movie. Yelena aside maybe, and maybe Red Guardian aside, I didn't feel like any of them changed, really. Which, again, if you double down, if they're lone wolves at the beginning, and then they're just even more lone wolves at the end, at least there's a change. I didn't really feel that. And like you said, like it really did feel like the movie like the fight ended and then movie ended. No resolution. Yeah. And even though it was a cute scene, the whole like, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know. The new Avengers! I was like, bitch, how'd you get all those reporters? Like just pragmatically, I was like, how the fuck? Like, I remember.
Well, to be fair to that point, That scene was not directed by anybody involved in this movie. It was made so that end credit scene with all the new Avengers and that whole like the end credit scene where it's like, or are you talking about the reveal to the press?
The reveal.
Oh,
When she's like, "Oh, follow me through this." It's kind of like this is kind of a weird example of it, but like during Endgame when the whole girl power moment happened, I wasn't ideologically against a girl power moment, but pragmatically, the way my brain works, I was like, "You're telling me all the women just happen to come to this spot right now?" Like it wasn't about like all these people like, "Oh, fucking woke shit." Like, no, I'm cool with the girl power moment, but like make it work to where like they somehow organically get there.
Well, Mike, there was a big shiny gauntlet with gemstones. Of course, all the women showed up.
No,
Touche. Touche.
They didn't have to, no. Listen, I'm not opposed to that scene either, but like the rightful criticisms of it are fair.
Yeah,
They're just.
My point being is like I didn't actually mind the idea of like them following her pissed off, and then she's like the new Avengers, and they're like, oh my god, and I did like I think it was Yelena that she's like we own you now. I kind of like that moment, but in the back of my head I was like New York was just almost destroyed in this void. How did you get all these fucking reporters here in 5 minutes? Like what? That's how my brain works. I know it's a movie, you know. You're supposed to let some of this shit go, but that kind of annoyed me a little bit.
No,
Anyway.
it's a perfectly like the scenario in which it creates makes sense. The way that it's executed doesn't, and that's that's where that gap is. Because again, there are plenty of other ways that you could have done that. I mean, just leave a little bit of space between like the devastation of New York and a press conference that happens like immediately. Like
right then,
the shadows are literally still coming off the city, and you mean to tell me that Valentina hosts a press conference like while half of New York is still covered in the void? Get the fuck out of here.
And everyone's still recovering from their own shit.
Didn't she already have the press coming down for her reveal of Sentry? So
I think so.
I think they would have been there.
Touche.
So I'm not saying it still feels really wonky the way that goes down.
That's a fair counterpoint. What I would have loved though is if it did do a shot and the reporters are still recovering from their own like anguish and their own voids. Like, they're just like, fuck.
Catatonic.
my father beat me. Like,
my question is, like, what did that little girl see when she went to the void? Like, what could she have possibly done in her 5-6 years of existence?
It's all relative, man. It could have been like her dog died or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
We all did shit when we were kids. Come on.
I knew where I buried the body.
Yeah, they still haven't found the bodies. What?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick?
No.
Danny, if you were not playing devil's advocate, were those your actual thoughts about the movie, or were you just trying to be like, hey guys?
So if they weren't my actual thoughts, I actually just started thinking about it when you guys were starting to tear it down. I'm like, well, can it be interpreted this way? And I was like, yeah, let's go down this rabbit hole. And so yeah, no, there definitely was, as I was watching the movie, that gripe of why do they like each other all of a sudden? Why do these people that are so singular feel like they need to come together right now? We don't get that in the movie. And I was thinking about it and I was just like, maybe it's this. That's it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay. I mean, I have other criticisms, but we've already beaten a dead horse. All right, things we liked. Like I said, I generally just like the movie. I am a fan of boots on the ground fisticuffs. So even though it's kind of a criticism, like I kind of didn't like the whole Sentry angle and it kind of being him superpowered and going into the void, all that shit. I personally didn't like it. It didn't ruin the movie for me. I would have preferred to see them just punching shit more and more and more. But
yeah, what is it about team up movies of like Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, these asshats? Like, why is it always let's put them against some superpowered being that Thor should absolutely come down and handle? When it's like, no, just give them something that they could excel at, something that's going to challenge them, but something that they can actually handle.
We're going back to criticisms. The void thing. I was gonna. You brought it up. I was trying to move on. You're right though. What? Why do these movies make the heroes do cheat codes? Why can't they just beat them? Like when Sentry beat the fuck out of them, I was like, how are they going to beat him? Like, there's no way. And they go in the void and they hug him and they use the cheat code to beat him. And it's like, can you just beat him? Like, find some way to beat him, kick him in the balls, and that's his kryptonite. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, beat him fair and square. Don't use the cheat code. You know what I mean?
So I actually
Boy
like
doesn't have nards.
Yeah, I actually like the cheat code.
I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying
No,
I would have loved to seen them.
And I
find a
understand.
way. Yeah.
I do like fisticuffs. I like on the ground. For me, it was a reprieve and a refreshing take and something that we haven't seen in a long time because everything has been these big, giant, overblown CGI multiverse bullshit cosmic battles that just clearly no one is on screen. That like even something as atrocious as Brave New World, which I think is probably one of the worst movies of the year. But even something that looks like even something like that, it's even then, yes, sure, they kind of try to blend both, but like he's still just fighting a giant CGI monster, and then he's like, "Oh, here's your CGI daughter that's not actually here. Remember her?" And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not the Hulk anymore." Like, get the fuck out of here. Like that, like that's just not so. But that whole thing just transpires in an unwinnable battle, and I actually really enjoyed the way that they do it with Sentry just basically being this overpowered Superman type of character. And instead of them trying to figure out how they're going to beat him and kick him in the nards, it creates a different scenario in which like the real enemy is themselves, right? The real enemy is depression. Like it's more to do with mental health. And I understand that like that's not everyone is going to buy that. But for me, I liked it just felt different. And right now, like that's the best I can ask for. And so
Sure.
I'm kind of on board with it.
Eric,
Yeah.
would you say that he was a big CGI monster that they had to calm down? Because you literally just described the same series of events from that movie to this.
I realized as I brought the example up, as I was about to rant, I was like, oh shit, no, I'm literally just saying exactly what happened. It's just better.
I will say,
I was already on the rant, so I didn't want to stop.
the train was going.
Correct myself. So we just barreled over and just ran them both into the ground.
I will say,
thank you.
I will say, I do appreciate the kind of void kind of angle on it, to where like they do kind of hug it out because we're all alone and we're all scared. I can't appreciate that. I think it was just my inner issues with other movies doing it all the time, where it's like, I can't beat the villain, so I'm going to use the cheat code to beat him. And so when that happened in this movie, granted, you're right that it makes sense in the context of these characters in the movie of like, we're all depressed, we're all alone, we're all going to hug it out. And so it made sense, and it is a good change. And I didn't dislike it. Just part of me is just sick of seeing that. Not even just Marvel movies, all these movies where like the bad guy is unbeatable, so we have the cheat code. And we're going to beat him around the corner. Yeah.
It's a tire trope. I'll give you that. It worked for me here, though, and I think that has more to do with just how tired I am from everything else the MCU is doing, to where they execute something that feels a little bit more grounded, feels a little less big giant CGI monster type of thing. For me, I just felt like, I'm on board with this.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm in between you two on that point, because I did find that part of it refreshing, but at the same time, going back to what I said earlier, I do feel like if we would have just seen everyone in the void dealing with shit that leads to that, like they realize they're alone, and so that it gives more of a payoff, because you're absolutely right, Mike, the way that they filmed it and shot it and everything, it felt like they all just showed up and cheat code, friendship activated, and then they hugged it out, and it didn't really feel earned. So I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle on that.
Anyway, things we liked.
That was supposed to be a thing I liked, but clearly I got derailed. Florence Pugh? Anyone?
Florence Pugh, yeah.
Anyone? Okay.
Yeah. I will say,
Guardian.
it's more interesting talking about the shit we don't like, I gotta say. But things we like, You're right. Pugh's great. Red Guardian was great. I think all the actors did fine. I think the issues we had with it was the writing, but I think the actors were fine. It was a good cast. I
Yeah,
mean,
everyone turns in a good performance. It's just,
yeah.
yeah, like you said, the writing, they're not, some of them just aren't given enough to do.
I feel bad because I feel like all we've done is shit on this movie. Like it's a solid like 7 out of 10 for me. Like
It's more fun. It's more
like
fun as shit.
I know it really is. I
Yeah.
like I would watch this again. I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm not going to go to the theater and watch it. But like when it inevitably shows up on FX, like yeah, I'll just wherever it's at, I'll probably end up watching it. And that's more than I can say for most of the post Endgame MCU movies because I'll tell you, when Ant-Man Quantumania shows up on FX, I can't change the channel fast enough.
But also, guys, it's called film criticism. If we didn't
Yeah.
have, it would just be the four of us being like, I loved it. No notes.
That's true. That's
Start
fair.
doing what Danny started off
fair.
doing, just jerking it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
so I will say I genuinely like the themes of the movie. I like that it deals with mental health, and I like that it deals with depression and loneliness, and it kind of gives that darker side of heroism, which I think like the MCU. It's so frustrating because this is one of those movies where it's like it makes me feel like you can do this, you're just choosing not to. And that really irritates me because we've seen them do something like this before where they kind of give a little bit more complexity to the character and you can't just be all good or all bad. You kind of have to operate in this gray and there's consequences of both, right? Being altruistic has its consequences as much as being just completely sociopathic. And when those two things collide, it creates these types of people. And so I really like that. I think the performances from Florence Pugh and the relationships built with her and Red Guardian and even Bob, I think little baby Pullman is doing great work. And I think those two together are excellent. And so I think they're putting in more work than this movie deserves. And it also elevates that movie to be significantly better. Because all of those criticisms all of those criticisms are overshadowed by some of these great sequences that we see. I think it looks great. I think the way it's filmed, the way it's edited, I think it's brilliant. But then you get these beautiful, poignant moments between Florence Pugh and Red Guardian and Bob and Florence Pugh. Like these things are really impactful. And I got a little emotional, even if I'm watching it through some critical eyes. Like they nailed some of that emotional weight. And I think they do those things really well.
Florence Pugh delivered a line. It was after they got worked. They just got bodied by Sentry when they're on the street, and she's just letting everybody have it. And I think it was a U.S. agent was like, "Oh, what are you gonna say to me or whatever?" And I forgot the exact line when she's like, "Oh, you know you're a piece of shit. Your family even knows it." I forgot what the line was, but when she said that, I was like, "Jesus fucking Christ, that was the worst thing." Like it was just so I forgot the exact words, but you know the line I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's like,
I know.
it's like,
Exactly.
I don't have to say
Yeah.
anything to you. Even your family knows you're a piece of shit. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, oof.
That
Oof.
whole
I was like, oof.
the end of waiting rant that she
Yeah.
did. I was like, fuck, you do it. You tell him, Florence.
But just that line to him specifically, I remember like when she said it, I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that was bad.
Yeah, when she got me, her whole monologue really got me, but the one that really hit me, and they kind of show it a little bit, but when she basically breaks down and tells him and tells Red Guardian, like, I'm so alone. Like I felt it. Like I was like, oh shit. Like I really, really felt that like this is a desperate, sad, lonely woman that just wants her father. And I think those things are just incredible.
That was a great scene between the two of them.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
That's what I think. I don't think Red Guardian needs his own movie, but like there are scenes in this movie where like because in Black Widow the movie he kind of like this oaf who's just kind of goofy and like, oh, I'm just trying to be the Red Guardian again. But there's like sprinkles in this movie where like you do see that genuine like I miss the glory, I miss being the Red Guardian, and like it kind of works its way in towards the end when they become the Avengers and he's like, oh fuck yeah, like with that sprinkle of like desperation. It could be the writing or just the actor, but like I enjoyed that to where like he's no longer this kind of. I think years ago we did the Lethal Weapon movies. We kind of reviewed them and we talked about Pesci's Leo Getz, how he's this goofy person, and then in Lethal Weapon 4 he has that moment talking about the frog, and it's like super deep, and you're just like, what the fuck did this come from?
Mhm.
I kind of compared that to David Arbor. That's his name, right? David Arbor?
David Harbour.
Yeah. With those sprinkles of Red Guardian just really missing his glory days and kind of having this midlife crisis of, I'm driving a fucking limo now in the States when I used to be this Russian hero, this Russian god. And like it's sprinkled in very subtly, but I really remember like just catching it and I was like, that's brilliant. Like that's really good. Like the small moments of just that, those little character developments. I really enjoyed that.
He also is so deeply attached to the family that never was. And
Hmm.
he's got these visions that like that family was real, even though he knows it's not. He's still really trying to hold on to this idea that like, yeah, my favorite moments are you playing soccer and somebody shitting on the field. Like, you know what I mean? Like of
Yeah.
all the lives that they've lived, like he wants this glory, but like he doesn't remember his daughters being assassins. He remembers them playing soccer in America. And like that kind of stuff, you see that kind of seep in. And I think it's Arbor's performance paired with the writing of that character, where you kind of just see those things seep in of like, yeah, he's lonely too. Like he misses this fake family that they had, and he's got regrets, even though he wants to be this great hero for Russia. Like he misses his children.
Well, and they do a good job of showing that right out the gate with his character. When you first see him and he's in his apartment, this his shithole apartment, and she shows up and he's like clamoring to clean the place up and pretend like he's doing better than he is because he's
Yeah.
not doing well. You know, they do a good job of showing that for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mike, I do think it's interesting you brought up Lethal Weapon, because I would 100% watch the buddy cop Red Guardian Winter Soldier movie for
Hell yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah. What
100%.
super soldier serum you get? Russian knockoff.
But yeah, so like those are good. I think the action sequences were good. Um, Despite my cheat code criticism, I do think that the mental health angle on it was good. As I think we're all advocates of mental health, so that's something I think is good on it. And I do think that the sprinkle at the end of, so I was reading theories online, which is a bad rabbit hole to go down, but that past Doomsday and was it Secret Wars, excuse me, that there might be like another Civil War type movie where it's like the new Avengers, these guys versus Sam Wilson's Avengers. I heard sprinkles of that. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen. But so I did kind of, yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings about them becoming the new Avengers, but I think it will set up good storytelling going forward.
Well, I think I think we're supposed to get that feeling
Hmm.
that these aren't my Avengers. And like I think the characters themselves feel that as well. It's like we're not the Avengers. And that kind of goes back to my you know, devil's advocate theory of like these people aren't supposed to be working together and they've been thrown in together because this was the best option that was given to them. Um, they could continue to go on the run, trying to fight Valentina and her plans, or they could accept this, be close to Valentina, and as Yelena said, own her.
Hmm.
I don't think the new Avengers things matters in the slightest, and it's just a marketing ploy. And
Yeah,
we know it doesn't matter because every single other person that's ever been in an MCU movie is now coming back to Doomsday because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and so now they're just doing a desperation cash grab, and they're like, "Hey, Robert Downey, you wanna come back for more money than God?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And then they did it for everybody else. So those things like I'm actually really down on the MCU overall, which is why, like, as much as I really enjoyed Thunderbolts, I'm not like we're fucking back, baby. We're not. Everything about it just reeks of desperation, and I'm not excited for it at all. But that's actually a compliment to Thunderbolts because I like that Thunderbolts felt like it was trying to service the story for most of its runtime versus trying to service the machine, which has been something that I've been really frustrated about with a lot of the other movies. I know I've been like overly critical of some of them.
wait, what machine would that be? Would that be Florence and her machine?
It would be Florence and her machine. I don't know if you guys know this, but she is a part of the MCU now. We know that because her song played in the dog. It played at the end of Guardians 3, so you know that she is now a part. She's canon, guys. But no, so like that is, of all of my criticisms for movies that come out after post Endgame, my number one criticism is that they are all service to just keep those cogs running. They don't tell their own individual stories. They all feel like homework. They're all just like, yeah, we just need to keep this machine moving. What happens in them doesn't matter because we're all just trying to get to whatever the next end game is. And what I really like about Thunderbolts for most of it, until you get to like the whole new Avengers bullshit, but for most of it, like they're not trying to do that. This is a very singular, tight, street level story that doesn't have any larger implication than the MCU for most of it. And it just exists. It just exists on its own. And they used to do that all the time. Like one of the reasons most of the pre-Endgame movies are so good is because, and I say this all the time, but like you can just watch The Winter Soldier. It doesn't matter what came before it or what happens after it. You can just watch Guardians of the Galaxy. The fact that they tie in somewhere later literally does not matter. It is completely secondary to the experience of just sitting down and watching Guardians of the Galaxy. You can't do that with any movie outside of Thunderbolts now. You can't do that with any movie after Endgame. All of them are servicing this giant MCU machine first, and then they're kind of telling a story second. And it's why the DCEU flopped. It's why the monster universe flopped. Like, because they're just trying to build a universe before they ever like populate it. And the MCU has kind of just done that in reverse. And look, they're too big to fail. I'm not saying like the MCU is dead. Like those absolutes are silly, but it's, long story short, that's something that I really liked about the Thunderbolts, where it doesn't feel that way.
I think that's accurate criticism because even like I said, we'll disagree. I still enjoy all of Marvel's properties, but the standouts that are post Endgame, like granted, sequels are going to connect to their previous ones, like, but the standouts, I would say No Way Home. Granted, No Way Home has its issues. Guardians 3 is my favorite of the Guardians, but so those standout movies, yeah, they're connected to the I don't want to say prequels, but their previous movies, their previous properties. But as standalone movies, they're not necessarily contributing to the cogs, as you say. They're still telling their own story while being connected, but telling their own story. Whereas a lot of the other ones don't, to put it simply.
Yeah.
But you're right. The Thunderbolts, I do like that. Granted that all these characters come from other properties, but it does tell its own story. That's one thing one of my employees said. We nerd out all the time when we're working together. He said, he's like, I felt like I didn't need to do homework to watch this movie. I could just, granted, like we had the criticism of some of the characters weren't fully developed and you didn't know who they were, but he's like, I felt like I could just walk in this movie not knowing anything and still enjoy it and know what's going on. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So I'm agreeing with you, Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the realm of the things that were enjoyable about the movie, when the characters did have scenes together, banter, what have you, those scenes were really good. I mean, they were fun. It was a fun movie in that regard. We just didn't get enough of them. The other thing that I will say I thought was fantastic was the effect that they used for when someone got voided, because holy shit, when that little girl just goes whoosh, you were like, oh shit, they just killed a kid.
When I tell you, I had no idea what the fuck happened. I was just like, what? I thought you got smoked.
Yeah, it was a really great effect, like when that was happening, because you don't know either. Yeah, so when you finally when Florence Pugh finally goes in there and you see, like, oh, okay, they're not dead. Woo, they're not dead. They didn't just kill a child. We're all good here.
Yeah, yeah. The Thunderbolts, because everything looks great, and they do this thing that hasn't been done in most movies, not just the MCU, in a really long time. They filmed on location. Like, who fucking knew? Who knew that you can just actually still film movies in the desert? I had no idea.
You could go outside.
But apparently you can actually just film in like actual places and not convert a parking lot into a cherry orchard. It's wild that you can do this.
You don't even need to turn the saturation down until you're in post.
You got an A24 that shit, bro. It's got a
This movie was really gray. I don't know
No,
why.
it was super great. Grays and
Again,
blues.
it
It was.
I think it was probably supposed to mirror the whole emotional
Yeah.
side of things, but like, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did we feel? I feel like we got a lot of the good stuff. The Thunderbolts kind of retconning the name into the soccer team. How do we feel about that?
I didn't care. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that it's supposed to be Thunderbolt Ross is where the name originally comes from, right? In the
Yeah.
comics.
Mhm.
And I could see why in the MCU they would retcon it because he just turned into a red smash monster in the previous film. But yeah, I didn't give a fuck. It is what it is, especially since they just went and changed the name
Changed
again at
it.
the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Because I honestly thought when she was introducing the team, the last fucking thing I expected to pop out of her mouth was the New Avengers. I thought she was going to introduce them as the Thunderbolts, or someone was going to correct her to say the Thunderbolts instead of what she said, and then that didn't happen. Then I was like, oh, okay, that's where we're going. All right.
Yeah,
So also,
Danny, you first.
okay, I'll say this about servicing the machine. I think the whole asterisk at the end of the name was like a post-release ad campaign strategy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys seen the video of Sebastian Stan going out and putting on the new posters, and then like it says New Avengers instead of Thunderbolts. I'm like,
I haven't
oh,
seen
okay,
that.
that's viral. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a
They did
post-release
the
ad
same
campaign.
thing. It was like near. It was. I don't think it was at the Met Gala, but it was like somewhere where they were doing a press tour, and Florence Pugh did the same thing, where like they had a big poster, and then she like ripped the Thunderbolts name off of it, and underneath it, it was like the New Avengers, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go.
Mhm.
Yeah. I at first I was wondering like how are they going to work the Thunderbolts name in? And so I actually enjoyed I kind of wish they did work the Thunderbolts name in related to Ross, but I think Red Guardian's absurd pushing of it the entire time. His daughter's soccer team's like, yeah, we're the Thunderbolts, and they're like, Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up. And he's like, no, we're the Thunderbolts. Like, I thought it was cute. I thought it was fine. It was good.
Did we ever establish Thaddeus Ross as Thunderbolt in the MCU?
I don't
I don't
think
think
No.
we
so.
did.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we
Yeah,
did.
so yeah, then it's perfect. that
I think everybody thought that they were going to, and then especially after Brave New World, when like it never even came up in the sequel to the Hulk. So yeah, I don't think they ever did it. I was fine with it. When things are like retconned like that, like I just like I think the thing that bothers me the most about like comic book fans in general, not to rant too much, but like everything gets retconned in the books you're trying to protect anyway. All these storylines that you swear to God are canon, like they all get retconned in the next issue. So why are you clinging to the one comic book you've read that says that the Thunderbolts should be this when like there are multitudes of versions of Thunderbolts? Like
I remember I got into a conversation with someone. Sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
But we were talking about it, and he kind of said the same thing. We weren't talking about Thunderbolts. We're talking about something else. And I was like, look, I'm not a comic book guru. You know, mainly watch shows and movies. But I was like, how do you think the whole aspect of a multiverse in the comic books came about? Because they stopped and then retold the same stories differently. That's how the multiverse in comic books kind of developed, was because they had these multiple storylines in different universes. So if something's different in the movie than it is the comic book, it doesn't mean that it's not being faithful. It's just a different story and a different take, like they did in comics. Like, so yeah, it was fine. Because I heard people bitching online about how it wasn't connected to Ross, and I was like, fuck yourself. Red Guardian just clamoring over his daughter's soccer team the entire movie was adorable as fuck, and it worked. And they changed the name at the end anyway, so who gives a shit? Like,
But that's the thing about any sort of adaptation, whether it's a comic book or a novel or whatever. It's people that hold too much to it's not exactly like the book. If you care that much, go read the fucking book.
exactly.
Like, this is a movie. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be representative of that, but it's an adaptation. Not
Yes.
everything that works in a book or a comic book works in a fucking movie.
Perfect example. Danny, you read Game of Thrones. How many fucking characters are in Game of Thrones that didn't make it to the show?
Too many to
Yeah.
count.
And they couldn't. You can't hire that many fucking actors. I read half of the first book, and I don't remember any of their names. Like, you can't hire that many people for Game of Thrones.
And
so,
if
anyway.
you really want to do that, and you want to see a faithful shot for shot remake of a book adaptation, then go fucking watch Watchmen, because Watchmen is like, bro, that is like, Zack Snyder just literally used the graphic novel as his script and storyboard. And like, I remember, because
but even that doesn't have the same ending.
even that has a different ending. So it's like,
Yeah.
he was faithful until the end and then changed it anyway. So
I'm going to bring up a term that I don't think we've used since the Jack of All Nerds days. That's book diggery.
That sounds like a racial slur.
It's not.
It's not.
It's
I know.
ridiculous.
I understand, but it sounds like a racial slur. I like it though. I'm enjoying that.
We used to do such good work, guys. We used to do such good work. What happened to us? Yeah. But I agree with you, Mike. It's that there's a reason that you have comic books and you have TV shows and you have stage and you have feature films and like, they are different mediums, and there are things that you can do in each medium that can't transfer over from one to the other, which is why you have them in the first place. So if you want your books to be preserved, then just go read your fucking books, man. Like,
I think we can all agree that we don't want to see a non-musical live adaptation of Rogers the musical. We want it. We just keep it on stage where it belongs. You know what I'm saying?
I don't need the feature film version. I would like my Broadway ticket, please.
I disagree.
I can do this all day.
I would love to see a feature film of Rogers the musical. I disagree with you violently and aggressively. I want to see that movie.
I'm fine with a musical movie adaptation.
Okay, you said non-musical. Fair enough. All right. Fair enough.
Which is just the Avengers, but
which is just.
I was saying, like, wait a second. Has anyone seen the sequel to Rogue One?
We're watching the Scream movies too much with Stab. So, but who would the budget characters of the Avengers be in the film adaptation? Oh my god.
I'm still waiting for the full length Rogers the musical. Please feed that into my veins. I'm so on board with that.
But like,
that's the MCU's back.
Yeah.
Even in this movie though, like, I'm sure aside from Thunderbolts, but like, I'm sure comic book nerds that were mad about that were probably mad about the changes to Sentry, because Sentry itself is also Sentry and the Void are drastically different in the comics, and I don't know if they're actually going to pay that story off eventually, because we don't really know much about Sentry at this point. But I don't know if any of you guys know about this.
I don't know a lot about
but
Sentry.
I know a little bit. Yeah,
fucking bonkers. Like,
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the end credit scene of the Fantastic Four coming in is more than just a nod to the Fantastic Four, because he actually has a lot to do with Reed Richards and what Reed Richards does to his mind to like basically shut off the Void from his mind so he can be Sentry. And then shit gets weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, but more so than that, like, if they wanted to retcon it the way they did in the comics, they would have to basically go back in. They would have to refilm all the scenes from everything that has happened in the MCU previously and include Sentry, because the whole thing about Sentry is that he was the world's greatest superhero for the longest time, but Void is whatever he would do something good, the Void would do something equally bad. And in order to cancel it out, he made the entire universe and himself forget that he was Sentry. And so he was there. He would have been there in the Avengers movie, helping the Avengers, but they all fucking.
Maybe that's what happened.
No,
and we don't remember
they are most certainly not smart enough to go back and do all of that shit. Nice try, though.
How fucking complicated would that be, though? Jesus Christ.
That'd be interesting.
Honestly, not that complicated. You just film scenes of him doing like the Battle of New York. You film scenes of him like doing Endgame, and just
but
at the very end of it all, he's just like.
Then you got the scenes where Marty comes into the same scene and he's in the background and trying to avoid, so he gets to the DeLorean in time. Like, it just doesn't work, guys.
I would love to see that.
I'm just like, now I just want to see them do the whole time travel thing again, and they go back to the original Avengers, and it's just Bob standing near a destructed cafe, like, what's going on, guys?
Shawarma, right?
Wouldn't that? I guess that would also mean that the void probably had something to do with all the bad shit that went down as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's wild. That's crazy.
Can you guys tell me? You want to place bets on who dies first in their respective movies? Slipknot in Suicide Squad or Taskmaster in this one?
I think it was Taskmaster.
I think it was Taskmaster.
Yeah, I was gonna say over under for sure. Taskmaster.
Motherfuckers.
Justice for Taskmaster.
Yeah, I can't get over that.
That dude, it's I could almost forgive everything else. Like that's the one thing where I was just like, no, that's unforgivable, guys. That was
Just
no.
like I think
No. She's
we all
on the
said,
goddamn Wheaties box. What are we doing here?
I actually love that. Is that the Wheaties box in the movie too?
Yes.
I love that.
Why-
She didn't even live.
It's not-
She's not even there, but she's on the Wheaties box.
Now I want to go back and rewatch the movie to fucking find out if she is on the Wheaties box in the movie because that makes no sense whatsoever.
That who shot her? Did Ghost shoot her or did US?
Ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ghost.
That's Ghost like feeling guilty. Like, do we have a photo of her? Can we just put her right here?
I mean, I think this is a marketing thing
Of course.
to mimic the Wheaties box because it does say Thunderbolts on it, not Wheaties. But yeah, I don't know. I do have a serious question for you guys though, and that is regarding the end credit scene. How did you guys feel about the appearance of the Fantastic Four at the end of that? Because I have thoughts. They're not
Yeah, I do
necessarily
too.
good thoughts. But I
Um,
wonder what other people thought first.
I think it was. I don't care. I think it was just. You're talking about the ship, right?
Yeah.
I think it was just a nod, kind of like they used to do, to the next movie. That's kind of how I took it. It's I'm not.
You generally don't get that heavy of a nod. And my issue is that this movie started with a trailer for Fantastic Four, and you can see that they're not in this universe. And sure. I get that they have to come to this universe eventually, but I don't need that ruined in this movie.
Yeah.
Because to me,
That's fair.
knowing that Galactus is showing up in their movie, that means they either fucking fail and he gets sent to our
Oh, I
universe
see what you mean. I see
or
what you mean.
something. So like to me, that bugged the fuck out of me. I was like, I didn't need to see that. Save that shit for their fucking movie. So that
I didn't think of that. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. It bothered me because for two reasons. One, you can tell that it's not. That was what I was going to tell you about, Mike, originally. Was this scene was not filmed, like this was filmed during the production of Doomsday, and it was filmed by the Russos. It was written and filmed by the Russos, which is why nobody acts the same. Everything looks totally different, and you're just like, are we in a different movie? Well, you are. Yes, you are in a different fucking movie because the original director, writer, filmmaker, none of them are involved in this little scene or whatever. So that right out of the gate just bothered the hell out of me. But then it also it like removes the stakes from a movie that's coming out next month. Like, I'm not saying like,
is there a dog getting choked out somewhere?
It's mine.
Okay,
mine. I'm sorry. I'm
Making
sorry.
sure.
Yeah, we abuse animals in my house. No, she's just dramatic as shit.
Go on.
Anyway, sorry guys. But no, so it like undoes all of the stakes. And look, we all know the Fantastic Four are gonna make it out of their own movie, right? But like, let us watch the movie first to know whether or not they make, because now I know not only do they all make it, but now I know where they end up. And that to me is just like, okay, well, do I really need to watch the Fantastic Four, or do I just need to watch like, I feel, and look, obviously I'm going to watch it, but it does have this feeling of like, well, I don't need to watch the movie now because I know not just how it ends, I know where they end up. And now you might as well just start where they end up because I don't really give a shit how they get there.
Well, I'll say, like, you knew they were going to end up as part of the main MCU timeline. You knew they were going to end up there because they were going to show up in Secret Wars. They were going to show up in Doomsday. So we don't know. There's still an air of mystery because we don't know why they come to this timeline. it could be something to do with Galactus, but it could also be something to do with Doctor Doom. They could, ward off Galactus, and then Doom comes in and is like, well, you fucked up. And he then causes some kind of calamity. Now they have to leave and come to our universe, or the main MCU universe.
You know, it'd be a great twist is if they all die in their movie and that ship contains Herbie.
And he's like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Actually,
no, you know what would be even better is that's how Cosmo actually comes back in to like that. It's just Cosmo on the ship. Anyways. No, I know what you mean, Danny, and I think I get it, but at the same time, it's like it would be different if Fantastic Four was significantly further removed from the Thunderbolts as far as their timeline. But this movie literally comes out a month after the fucking Thunderbolts. Like, we don't even have time to try to understand what it means, because in 4 weeks, we're all just going to sit down and figure it out. Like, it's not a stinger. There's no anticipation. There's no theorizing. Like, it's just, hey, by the way, the Fantastic Four are here. And it's
because
like,
it feels like the kind of end credit scene that you would have at the end of Fantastic Four. Like, you have like a sort of ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
And then the end credits, we would get this scene and then see that the Fantastic Four are coming into the MCU.
Yeah, reverse it. Like,
that's another thing, because this is a stinger and that was directed by the Russos. I don't think this is going to tie into the Fantastic Four at all. That movie at all. I think this is going to tie into Doomsday. And then we're going to see them at the end of Doomsday jump in that ship and then cross the multiverse.
I would have enjoyed the scene a little bit more, and I actually don't really care for the scene overall. But I would have been fine if the scene just ended with the Avengers with a Z, where he's just trying to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a funny stinger. It's not like anything that's connected. It just keeps the movie contained to itself, and it's just one last chance for us to see how silly Red Guardian is and just kind of enjoy that, because
it does provide a little bit more information too. Like, we didn't need the Fantastic Four part. If we just cut that out, I'd be fine. But like the whole the rumor about Sam copywriting the name Avengers, and then like, so that that like, oh, maybe we're gonna have an Avengers dance off or whatever, for the name, like that's good information. But yeah, I agree, you should have cut it off sooner.
Or better yet, instead of the Fantastic Four, make it Doom.
Either way, I think that, because I'll be honest, I didn't think of it like that at the time. Now I'm starting to understand, but I think that's a larger criticism of marketing in general, because like, and we're obviously going to get to Sinners, but like, you don't, as people who like the lore, you want to go into a movie knowing as little as possible. But Marvel also, and this is where I'm not defending it, but like, I get it, needs to market. So like, a perfect example is like, I hated the fact that they announced the cast of Doomsday with that scroll of all the chairs.
I hate everything about it.
Hated it.
Everything about it. It is the most desperate, irritating fucking thing I've ever seen in Hollywood.
The thing is, that's what they have always done, though. If you look at No Way Home, like, you saw the villains from the previous Spider-Man movies. I would have loved to go in that movie not knowing any of that shit and just be surprised. But they have to market. They have to boost it. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, a movie I liked. I would have loved to gone in there not knowing that Professor X was going to show up. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been cool just to see him, like, for the first time. And that's where, like, I don't agree with it. But I get the marketing side of it.
I don't remember him showing up in the marketing for that movie, because when I saw,
you saw like the back of his head and you hear him say, "Tell him the truth," so it's him.
Yeah, I don't remember that from the marketing. I remember when I saw.
But the most egregious example is making Red Hulk the primary marketing campaign for Brave New World.
Another perfect example,
like that. That movie is, I know I've been really harsh on it, but that movie is so much worse because it's all marketed around the only legitimate reveal in the movie. Like, The
So
whole movie is leading up to that reveal, and it is the primary marketing campaign for that movie.
I'm gonna 100% agree. A quick Captain America thing. We can go back and forth. I enjoyed the movie, but I agree 100% that like the marketing campaign was about the Red Hulk. So everyone's like the Red Hulk, and then that was the last fucking fight in the movie. Yeah, it was, and so Marvel has a history of doing this though, even pre-Endgame, of like doing these reveals to get people to come in, even though as fans of the lore, we'd rather just see it live. And so I do understand and I agree with the Fantastic Four ship shouldn't have been included now that you guys have kind of given me the context of it. But I understand it. I'm not defending it, but I understand they're trying to hype their next movie, especially since post Endgame has been kind of a not the greatest era of Marvel. So they're kind of trying to pull them fans back in because hey, look, there's a four on the ship, right? So you know what that means. So you should come see it, right?
Well,
I don't
it's
know.
like I said though, like they're a machine.
Yeah,
That's what they are. It's a machine, and everything is in service of the machine.
that's what it is though.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on the Thunderbolts? Good. Cool. This has gone a little long.